Hello shoemates, welcome to Sewing with Damara. In this tutorial, I'll be teaching you guys how to cut and sew a bust contour pencil skirt with lining and a back slit. Most of the times, pencil skirts can be very uncomfortable to wear because it can be too tight. In this tutorial, I'll be showing you how to create a very comfortable pencil skirt which will give you a very nice fitting at the same time. If this seems like something you're interested to learn, please stick with me to the end of this tutorial and let's dive right into this. For the blouse which you saw at the beginning of the tutorial, I created a tutorial on that and is already up on my channel. I'll be putting the link in the description box for those of you that want to check it out. Now make sure that you put your fabric on fold. The first thing I need you to note here is that we are not cutting the front and the back together. We'll be focusing on the front piece first, then the back part later. Now to know how many inches to put your fabric on fold, what you need to do is to divide your hip measurement by 4 and add about 3.5 to 4 inches to whatever you get. Multiply whatever you get by 2 and put your fabric on fold. Now come down from the top of your fabric by 0.5 inch and mark your starting line. This starting line is also going to be serving as the waistline. Now place your tape there at the waistline, making sure that you take note of your band height. For me, the band height I'll be using is 1.5 inch, so you can see how I placed that there at the top, and I'll be taking the measurement of the full length of my skirt first. So for the full length, I'll be using about 46 inches. I'll just mark that there and connect with a straight line. You'll be taking out other measurements, also taking note of your band height, which is 1.5. Mark your hip line. From my waist to hip line is 9.5 inch. I'm going to mark that there. Then for my waist to my knee line is about 22 inches and I'm going to mark that there. I already marked my length. So go ahead and connect all those points with a straight line. For more clarity, this is the waistline, this is the hip line, the knee line, then I have my length down there. From the center front, mark quarter of your waist measurement. Mine is 7.5. I won't be adding any darts to this, so I'm going to go ahead and add my stitching allowance, which is 1.5. But if you will be adding darts to yours, after marking quarter of your waist measurement, you add 1 inch for that before marking your stitching allowance. Now coming to the hip line, we are going to be using a hip allocation method to help to give us a better fitting. Divide your hip measurements by 4. For me, it is 11.5. Now instead of marking that 11.5, I'll be taking out 0.5 inch from what I get. If you're a hippie person, take out 0.5 inch, but if you are not, take out 1 inch from your front hip line measurement. So I'll be marking 11 inches here. Then add my stitching allowance, which is 1.5 inch. Now take the full measurement of what you have on the hip line. For me, it is 13.5 inch. Now what you're going to do is to take out 2 inches from the measurement of what you got on your hip line, and that is what you're going to mark on your knee line. So I had 13.5 inch, right? I'll be taking out 2 inch and I'll be marking 11.5 inch on my knee line. For the measurement you'll be marking on your length, you take out 0.5 inch from what you have on your knee line. So what I have on the knee line is 11.5. I'm going to take out 0.5 and I'll be marking 11 inches on the length of my skirt. I hope this is understandable. After doing this, now go ahead and connect all these points together just like you see me doing here. At the center from the waistline, come down by about 0.75 inch. This is going to help you to reduce any form of bulge in front of your skirt. Now using your curve, connect this back into the waistline just like I'm doing here. We are done drafting out the front part of our skirt. Go ahead and cut this out just like you see me doing here. I've gone ahead to use this to cut out my lining also, as you can see here. But make sure that your lining is about 1.5 to 2 inches shorter than the main fabric. Mine here is 2 inches shorter than the main fabric. Okay, so make sure that you do this. Now let's quickly cut out the back piece. To cut out the back piece, I already have my fabric on fold here. And to know how many inches to put your fabric on fold, you need to divide your hip measurement by 4, add 2 inches for your zipper allowance, and add 2 inches for your stitching allowance. So multiply what you get by 2, cut your fabric and put it on fold. Now from the center, you are going to come in by 2 inches for your zipper allowance. Mark that across your fabric and rule with a straight line. Now this side here is going to be for our zipper allowance. At the top of your fabric, come down by about 0.5 inch and rule a starting line across, which is also going to serve as your waistline. Place your tape there at your waistline, making sure that you take note of your band height, which is 1.5 inch. Mark your waist to your hip line measurement. Mine is 9.5. Your waist to your knee line, mine is 22, and then your waist to the length of your skirt. I'll be connecting all these points with a straight line. Make sure you extend your hip line into your zipper allowance. Now coming to the waistline, make sure that all your measurements are starting from this point, as this side is the zipper allowance. So first you're going to mark quarter of your waist measurement. Mine is 7.5 inch. I'll be adding that to the back piece of my skirt, so I'll be adding 1 inch for my dart and 1.5 inch stitching allowance. On the hip line, mark quarter of your hip measurement, add your stitching allowance. So take the full measurement of what you have on your hip line, remove 2 inches and mark what you have on your knee line. Remove 0.5 inch from what you marked on your knee line, and that is what you'll be marking on the length of the skirt. Now after doing that, go ahead and connect all these points together just like I'm doing here. For the dart, you are going to mark half of your nipple to nipple measurement on your waistline. Mine is 4 inches. Then come out on both sides of this line by 0.5 inch. For how long my dart is going to be, I'll mark down 5 inches from this point. I'll connect it back into my dart point and connect the 0.5 inches I marked by the side back into the length like this. After creating your darts, the next thing you're going to do is to come to this zipper allowance. This is where the hip allocation method comes into play. Now remember that you took out 0.5 and some of you took out 1 inch from your front hip. Now what you're going to do is you're going to replace whatever inch you took out from the front hip line. For me, I took out 0.5 inch. So from this zipper allowance, I'm going to mark 0.5 inch here. So before we connect it back into the waistline, for the female bodies, the waistline kind of curves in at the back. It goes in. So what we are going to do now is to go in from this point by about 0.5 inch, and then you'll be connecting what you have there back into what you have on the hip line using your curve. To connect this back into your zipper allowance, what you need to do is to come off from the heel line by about 6 inches. You can also use 5 inches here. Then using your curve, you are going to connect what you have there on the hip line back into the zipper allowance line like this. So after you are done with that, we have successfully created our butt contour effect. This is going to help to give you a very nice fitting at the back of your skirt. And the next thing you're going to do here is to add your zipper allowance. You'll be marking your zipper allowance starting from this new waistline here. I'll be using 1.5 inch. On the hip line also, I'll mark 1.5 inch for my zipper allowance. I'll connect this together using my curve. From this point here also, I'm going to mark out 1.5 inch and I'll connect what I have there on the hip line into that point. Then you continue marking 1.5 inch until you get to the length of your skirt. After doing this, this is what it looks like. Now go ahead and cut this out just like you see me doing. Make sure that you notch your dart point and also make sure that you notch your zipper allowance point. Now go ahead and cut out your lining, and just like you did on the front, make sure that the lining is 2 inches or 1.5 inches shorter than the main fabric. Now I'll be stitching down all my dart points on the back piece, both on the main fabric and on the lining. After stitching down my darts, this is how it came out. Now the next thing I'm going to do is to stitch down the main fabric and the lining together. So I'm going to take away the remaining parts of the back piece, leaving just this one, and I'm going to bring in my lining. Now I need you to note that if you're a beginner, you need to make sure to know where your center back is and where your side back is. Sometimes it's very obvious like mine here, but just to avoid any form of confusion, you can just go ahead and use a little mark to just label it for you to be able to differentiate. Now place your lining on your fabric like this, ensuring that you place the lining on the right side of the fabric and place it very well. Now the next thing you would notice that the lining is 2 inch or 1.5 inch shorter than the main fabric, which is how it's meant to be. Okay, now you're going to drag the lining to be the same length to the main fabric like this. What you'll be doing here is to stitch this down using 0.5 inch stitching allowance. Now we'll be doing the same thing to the front piece. Place the lining on the right sides of the fabric. Draw it to be the same length at the down part, and you'll be stitching it down using 0.5 inch stitching allowance. Now after stitching this down, this is what we have. Now we'll be stitching it down at the sides to secure both the fabric and lining in place. There are two ways to go about this, okay? The first way is with your lining still facing the front side of your fabric. You stitch it down at the sides by about 0.25 inch just to secure it in place. So if you do it this way, this is what it's going to look like, okay? The wrong sides will be hidden inside. But as a beginner, I wouldn't advise you to take this method because most of the times after stitching this down, the stitching allowance you have inside your skirt will be so much, and then you might end up going ahead to cut it open, so there's actually no need. So as a beginner, what you just have to do is to turn the lining to the wrong side of the fabric like this. Make sure that you align it to be the same length at the top. So you can notice here at the down part that the main fabric has folded in, thereby giving a seamless finish. This is what you are going to achieve. What you're going to do here now is to stitch it down at the both sides using about 0.25 inch stitching allowance. For the back piece also, go ahead and trim off the excess of what you have from that stitch. You turn it over to the wrong side of the fabric, and just like you did for the front, you take it up to be the same length with the fabric at the waistline, and you will see here that it took up the main fabric inside, giving a seamless finish. You will also be stitching down the sides using 0.25 inch. After stitching this down, this is what I have here. Now what we are going to do is to join the two back pieces together. So I'm going to bring in the other side of my back piece, and I'm going to place them right sides facing each other like this. The first thing you need to do is to determine how long you want your zipper to be. So for me, I'll be using 8 inches for my zipper. For the zipper allowance, remember that we use 1.5 inch. So I'm going to mark 1.5 inch and connect it into the length of the zipper there. And I'm going to continue marking the 1.5 inch like this. The next thing I'm going to do is to determine how long you want your slit to be. So I'll be using about 23 inches for my slit. So what you will be doing is to go to the machine and make a loose stitch from this point into the length of the zipper. And then you'll be stitching down from here up to this point where the slit started, okay? Now after stitching this down, this is what it looks like. I'll just be opening that up to show you guys. So you would notice that this area here has extra space to house the butt. So what you'll be doing now is to iron your seams open all the way into the length of your skirt. After ironing the seams open, this is how it should look like. Now we'll be joining the front and the back piece together, and to do this, bring in your front piece and place it right sides to the back piece. Go ahead and pin this down at the side, making sure to align it properly as you are pinning it down. So make sure you pin down the both sides. Now sometimes after pinning it down, you will notice that at the waistline is not aligning properly, just like mine is looking here, and this is because the front waistline is now bigger than the back waistline after stitching down the zipper allowance at the back waistline. But I'm going to be showing you what to do to resolve this problem if you find yourself in this situation. So first of all, take out your pins like this, and then make sure you flatten it out. Now looking at this from the back, you would notice that the back waistline is now smaller than the front waistline after stitching in your zipper. Now this is not a problem. We'll be working with the back waistline now. We'll be working with what we have at the back waist. But first of all, make sure you take the measurement of what you have on the back waist. For me, what I have here is 16 inches, and my waist measurement divided by 2 is 15, which means I have an extra of 1 inch, so we can work the back waist. Now what you are going to do now is to mark where the back waist is starting on the front piece like this. Take out the measurement of what you have from this point here to the other points that you marked. So for me, what I have here is 16 inches, and half of my waistline measurement is 15, which means I'm marking out 0.5 inch on both sides. Now this is really important to note this, because this is going to help you to get a good fitting around your waist area. Coming to the hip line, divide your hip measurement by 2. For me, it's 23 inches, and what I have here is 26, which means I have an extra of 3 inches. So I'll be taking out 1.5 inches on both sides. I'll go ahead and connect this to the waistline. Now, while connecting what you have on your hip line to the waistline, make sure that you're not making it very curvy. As you know, our shape is not perfectly curved, okay? Now coming to the knee line, you'll be doing the same thing. Remember that you took out 2 inches from what you had on the hip line, and that was what you marked on the knee line. So I'll be taking out 1.5 inch on both sides of my knee line. I'll connect it. Then coming to the length, I'll just connect this straight all the way to the length. I'll just be taking the measurement of what I have here. I'll be marking out 2 inches on both sides of the length of my skirt, and I'll connect it back. Now what you're going to do is to go to your machine and stitch this down on the lines that you just created. After stitching this down, this is how it came out. Now the next thing you're going to do is to insert your band, and to do this you're going to take the measurement of what you have around your waistline. So for me, I have 33 inches, so I'm going to go ahead and cut out my band. So I've cut out my band here, and I make sure to add like extra 4 inches to what I got on my waistline. Also, my band height is 2 inches here, and as you know, we'll be using ½ inch to attach it to this waist of the skirt, leaving us with 1.5 inch. And opening this up, you can see that I ironed my interfacing on it. This is 4 inches, so on fold it is 2 inches. So to attach this to the waistline, make sure you fold in the edge like this to give it a clean finish. Then you place it on the right side of the waistline and you pin it down all the way around. Getting to the end here, you will notice that we have excess fabric. You can go ahead and cut off the excess and fold in whatever you have left to give it a clean finish. After inserting the band, you can see how beautiful this came out. Now go ahead and trim off whatever excess you have of your stitch there. The next thing we are going to do now is to insert our zipper. So I'm going to turn this to the wrong side. For the zipper, make sure you loosen the stitch at the area you gave for your zipper. And after doing that, you will notice that there is a line there that is going to direct you on how to insert your zipper. Okay, so I'll be using those lines as my guide to insert my zipper. After inserting the zipper, you can see how beautiful this came out. This area here around the butt, it has an extra space to help to house the butt and give a butt contour effect. Coming to the slit, to finish off the slit, you can either insert a hemming gum here and give it a good press, or you make a stitch at the edges of both sides to secure the slit in place. And yeah, that is it for this tutorial. You can see how this is. Go ahead and give your skirt a really good press. We have come to the end of this tutorial. I hope this tutorial was really helpful. Please do let me know in the comment section. Make sure you like this video, share to family and friends who you think we need this. Turn on your post notification to get notified when we post a new tutorial. I'll see you guys in my next one.